Hello guys, and welcome back to another cold episode. On today's episode, as you can tell by the title and the thumbnail, we are going to be doing a tier list for the upcoming Banlist season area type thing. It's been a while since I've done one of these tier lists, but yes, it's just going to be a tier list for the post-Banlist style format in Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel. So the 28th, which is like tomorrow, as when you will be seeing this. As you can see, we have a lot of decks to get through, so if something is notable, I'll talk about it, like if there's going to be a change, or if something is like underrated, or something like that. Also, I'm going to be doing this based off of the power level of the deck and not the popularity. I've done popularity in the past, but in all honesty, it's pretty easy to tell what is going to be the most popular decks. They're going to be the newest decks, as well as the decks that are decently good, maybe tier 1/1.5 esque. Those are going to be some of the more popular ones, and there are a lot of those, so it's hard to really say. But yeah, normally the newer they are, the more likely they are to be popular. So let's start off with 8 Axis. This deck is, or aka Luna Kaiju, this deck is actually very good given the fact that in best of ones, also I should mention, this is specifically for the Master Duel ladder and not for tournaments. So not best of threes, not side decking, just on the ladder against your opponent 1v1. This is why we are going to put 8 Axis as well as basically blind going second strategy with Luna Kaiju. It's really good. If you don't know what your opponent is playing and all of a sudden you get a Kaiju on your field and then they just proceed to OTK you with the Numeron Network, or not Numeron Network, the Numeron Dragon, I forget what it's called, but the guy that like punches for 9k, yeah, pretty difficult to deal with. Also, they're just able to like clear your board very easily and OTK pretty effectively. ABC is, I think, getting a little bit of a buff. I could be wrong, but I know, I'm pretty sure that this is receiving some sort of buff. I think the ABC Dragon is going to 2. Could be wrong. The deck's good. Not great, though. Next up, we have Battling Boxer. DDD. DDD is... I'm going to put them in either tier 3 or Rogue. I'm going to put them in tier 3 for now. We'll see how the rest of the tiers shape out. They're decent. The problem is that they don't really have a good monster interactions. So because of that, they're not really the greatest. And with such monster-heavy effects being top tier, I don't think that this is necessarily great. I think FA... okay, here we have Lyrilisk. This I'm going to put in tier 1. Lyrilisk Tri-Brigade is genuinely one of the best decks of the format and hasn't really fallen out of favor, even though the limitations to both, or to Tenki, Fractal, and the Cobalt Sparrow have all been little hits. It really hasn't changed much. And while you may say that, oh, they don't really have the greatest matchup against Flu, that's actually not the case. Being able to be, basically play under a barrier statue and go for your own like Apex Avian and stuff like that, and Bird of Samorg and all of that stuff, really is very powerful against Flunder. So, and you can make a Zeus, which is like a death sentence to Flunder. So yeah, all in all, pretty strong. Next up, we have Raid Raptor. Raid Raptor is... Raid Raptor can do some pretty interesting things, but yeah, we're going to put them down there. Next up, we have Dogmatica. Dogmatica Invoked Shadal is very strong, and I think it's just not seeing play because it's one of those control strategies that's not like the best control strategy, and you don't get to just turn your brain off. But with that being said, it's still incredibly strong, especially since you could play it as a going second strategy, which is very helpful in a best of 1 format. So overall, still a very strong deck. Tier 2, probably closer to the bottom of tier 2, like top of tier 3 though. This is Roids. Yeah, okay. Earth Machine, aka Machina, a little bit slept on. I'm going to put them above DDD. I think that they're a little bit better, but not by much. Unchained is pretty interesting. Can be played, again, mostly as a going second strategy, but kind of loses to multiple interactions, or like a way to stop their board breaks. So, yeah, there's that. Buster Blader is just, it's bricky. Heat Soul... no, this is Salomon Great. Salomon Great got a huge boost in consistency as well as in power with the addition of a second Gazelle and and access to the new Heat Soul, respectively. So both of those give them a weird control playstyle where they basically get to play a whole bunch of hand traps and then go into access code talker and kill you. So it's very different than like standard control. It's more of like make a really, really mediocre board turn 1, survive through the use of hand traps and targeted like interruptions with things like Rage or Roar or something along those lines with potential additional setups, and then just kill them through access code. Zodiac is still one of the best decks. The hit to the Adventure Engine did hurt, but overall Zodiac is still incredibly powerful. The only reason, again, people aren't playing it, I'm actually going to drop this down. This is not the Zodiac Tri-Brigade. We'll talk about that with like Tri-Brigade, but overall, like Zodiac itself, along with like the Adventure Engine and all of that, is still a fine control strategy. Again, similar to the Salomon Great. I'm actually going to put it below Salomon Great. But they play like the Adventure Engine and the like. Exosisters are absolutely garbage right now. I'm sorry. Karakuri, also pretty bad. Odd Eyes, pretty terrible. The thing with Dark Lords is that they can be specifically played with Despia, which makes them significantly better, and they can technically be played with Branded, but they're just like a worse version of the actual Branded stuff, and Branded's very good. But it's hard because I want to put them in tier 3 because realistically, again, with the Branded and the Despia stuff, they are pretty good, but Dark Lords by themselves inherently drag that deck down. The deck itself, though, the Branded Despia stuff is so powerful, and you can play the Dark Lords with it to go into the first Dark Lord if you want to. So it is tier 3, but not the greatest. Sulfur has like 2 good cards that are absolutely broken and nothing else. This is a deck that exists. Geargia exists. Okay. This is probably the best deck of the current format. Yeah, Dragon Link is absolutely crazy. Being able to consistently have incredible access to so many different things, being able to end on very weird boards that interact in very like difficult to interact with ways, having multiple negations and stuff like that, while also being able to have incredible follow-up through like their field spell, through the Hieratic Seals if they end up going into that, through the Borreload, Boral End Dragon, this guy. All of that makes this deck absolutely incredible, and I consistently say that this is probably the best deck. It's either this or Sword Soul that is the best deck, which we will get to Sword Soul in a second. Even in best of ones, I think both of those decks are absolutely crazy. For various different reasons. Magic Key is a deck that exists. Same with Gravekeepers. Gravekeepers, everyone will always say that whenever there is a meta that revolves around the graveyard, that Gravekeepers will do well. And the thing is, they never do. Sure, being able to have access to something like a Necro Valley is nice. The problem is that Necro Valley just isn't enough. You have to be able to stop your opponent from, like, getting monsters onto the field. Now, granted, if you go Necro Valley Monster and Royal Tribute, sure, that can just end games, but that's also like a very high roll combo, and there are a lot of decks that have high rolls that do very similar things. Red Eyes can just randomly FTK you, but other than that, I don't really see them doing anything. Infernoble is... it's a pretty sleeper pick, I'm not gonna lie, but even with that being said, they lost Halka-Fibrax and a few other notable cards, and they're just not really as consistent. So, yeah, there's that. Tino Wrestler is literally just Pankratops, so there's that. Melfi can be played with Tri-Brigade, so we're going to put them in Rogue tier. Next up, we have UA. I actually don't know about too much about UA. I think I've played against it like once or twice in Master Duel, and I cannot remember them doing literally anything. I want to see if there's an Adamancipator on here, or if this counts as Adamancipator real quick. 1 second. I found the Adamancipator. Turns out this is actually Kawaki Mairu. Adamancipator is still absolutely broken, busted. I don't know why people stopped... I do know why people stopped playing this. It's a slow deck that isn't really the greatest to play, nor is it the most fun to play against. It's slow, so grinding on the ladder isn't really the strongest. And yeah, all of that stuff. However... I've seen it multiple times just, like, show up as, like, a one-of in a tournament and top and get, like, top 16 or something like that. In, like, bigger tournaments as well. In all honesty, this is a great combo deck. It's kind of a glass cannon, which doesn't really matter as much in the in Master Duel, but Block Dragon also makes it at least a lot more resilient than it is in like the TCG where Block Dragon is banned. Yeah, honestly, just being able to go and like make it basically unbreakable board is absolutely crazy. Oops. Yeah. Flunder is incredible. Easy deck to play. You can turn your brain off and basically win. It's easy wins as well because it just floodgates your opponent out of the game. If you have any semblance of a brain cell, even the mirror match is pretty interesting and has like a lot of back and forth that you can do, and like where you can basically show that you are better than your opponent. But most importantly, the deck is incredibly powerful, and it just got additional tools. It's now able to go into like Rongo and stuff like that, or you can play turn 1 and just like play on your opponent's turn. There's a whole bunch that this can do. It has a good time going second because it can play Dimension Shifter as well. There's just a whole bunch that it really does. Burn will always be pretty decent. Numeron is always also very good. I'm actually going to put it like clear up here above the Luna Kaiju. I think that Numeron is just the best OTK strategy. Sure, it's not necessarily all that consistent because you do have to see specifically the access to the Numeron network, which technically you have like, what, 7 copies of it, which isn't great, but it's not terrible. But yeah, all in all, it's just an absolutely busted card. Or the strategy. Just being able to, again, blind second, nuke your opponent's field, which is not all that difficult if your opponent doesn't know what they're planning for, and then drop Numeron Network and kill them. Pretty great. Black Wings, not doing anything. We have VW. VW fell off quite a bit due to VFD being banned, but this deck can still do quite a lot, and so I'm going to put it in tier 2. I don't think it's as good as the Shadal Dogmatica Invoked stuff, although, to be fair, that should probably be, like, Invoker, and this should probably be, like, the Ritual stuff. We'll talk about this in a second. Yeah, it's not as good as like the Invoked Dogmatica Shadal stuff, but it's still very strong, and it can still make some pretty decent boards. Yeah, and Shen Shen is a house, right? As for the Ritual stuff, I do think that it's actually pretty good, given the fact that you can like go first, see what your opponent's playing, which is a great bonus, and then also like rip cards out of their extra deck. It's not the greatest when it comes to, I mean, it's a Ritual deck, so it's not great, but overall, yeah, pretty good. Red Dragon Archfiend, Mermail, we'll put it there, Crystal Beast, Spiral! Spiral recently got quick fixed to 2 as well, which makes the deck more consistent. The problem with the deck is that it is rather difficult to play overall, and it requires you to, like, build boards in a, like, you kind of have to know exactly what your opponent has the potential to do to build your board around that. Now, granted, you do get to see oftentimes what your opponent is playing, given the effects that they activate, but overall, I think the deck is pretty difficult to play, and it's still incredibly strong. Quick fix to 2 means that you're able to cycle it more often because it doesn't have a once per turn. And yeah, there's so much that you can do with this. Just being able to see that card in particular. It's similar to Gazelle in that nature, but I do think that this strategy is a little bit stronger. Being able to end on like Apollosa, IP Masquerena, Code Breakers, and the like, with additional follow-up in your hand is absolutely crazy. And you could do this through several hand traps. So there's that. Next up, we have Zombie World, which I'm going to call as Zombie World Control. Zombie World Control is pretty good. I don't think it's as good as just like Floodgate Control with like Eldritch and stuff. But this is like Zombie World, Baylor Drock, Eldritch shenanigans. I'm actually going to put this at the top of tier 2. I think it's better than Spiral overall. It's just like the second best control. Maybe not the second best, but one of the better control strategies overall. Mech Knights are a good, decent going second strategy. Again, I think going second in best of ones is a little bit better. So there you go. Super Quants exist. Joker Knights. Joker Knights are weird. Golden Castle of Strongberg. I'm going to actually put this in Rogue. This is like Grand Maju stuff, although I don't know if Grand Maju would also be on here. Oh, it is. Okay. Well, if it's Golden Castle, actual Golden Castle stuff, then no. Dragon Maids are... Dragon Maids are fine. I'm going to put them in below Infernoble. I'm going to put this guy up here. Dragon Maids are interesting. They have a lot of potential, especially with like the bestial stuff that will eventually come out. But as of right now, they don't really have a very strong game plan. Sitting on one negate that can potentially float isn't the greatest. While it is big, it's not enough, right? Yeah, that's basically it. It's just they don't really do enough. They're really good in like Dragon Link. The Chamber Dragon Maid, I think, is one of the better starters for the Dragon Link stuff. But overall, Dragon Maids aren't great. Marincess is fine. They basically sit on an unaffected monster, and that's it. They basically do the same thing that Salamangreat does, except worse. They make a slightly better board with an unaffected monster, but the thing is, you can deal with that board so very easily by like dealing with the field spell, or just like if your opponent doesn't end up being able to go into that monster but because you've hand trapped them, or they ended up breaking or something like that, it's not really that strong. Blue Eyes, Shaddoll actually does have a very good strategy by itself. I'm going to put this at the top of tier 3. I think going second Shaddoll is very interesting and can like break some boards, but more specifically gain a whole bunch of advantage and play through quite a lot. And that's, I think, where it really does shine. It does lose steam pretty quickly, and once you run out of like fusions that you can actually deal damage with, if your opponent is able to survive, basically, it can be a little bit more difficult to close out the game with this than something like the invoked stuff, because of you don't have access to like Purgatrio or something like that. Eldritch is always going to be one of the best decks, given the fact that floodgates are still absolutely everywhere. And guess what? There are so many floodgates that are currently available. You can even like main deck anti-spell fragrance and then just like flip it, and just if your opponent's playing branded, all of a sudden they die. So yeah, there's that. Ignite. So this is Tenyi. I don't know, it's everything else. Here we go, Tri-Brigade. So Tri-Brigade, as I said, it has the two variants with the Lyrilisk Tri-Brigade, as well as the Zodiac Tri-Brigade and the like more pure, like making Verte Anaconda and DPE and stuff like that. So they have those two or like 3 variants. Yeah, but overall, Tri-Brigade, I'm just going to put it right next to the Lyrilisk Tri-Brigade. I think the Zodiac Tri-Brigade is probably a little bit worse than Lyrilisk, just because it can't play through the Flunder stuff, and Flunder is pretty common. So that's more or less it. They basically, I would say, have like similar power level and similar consistency. It's just one can play through the Flunder stuff, one has a much more difficult time. Yeah. Melodious exists. Lightsworns don't do anything. Inspector Border Stun is always going to be pretty decent overall. There's a lot of different stun mechanics in the game. Dino Patulocephalopod, I forget what it's called. The fossil dino monster that just prevents you from special summoning is a house. Sidra's not bad because you can OTK pretty effectively. It's not the greatest, but if you go second, it's not terrible. So we'll put it in Rogue. Plants are pretty mid. This is also pretty mid. It's not. It's like a worse Cyber Dragon. Mathmex don't have Circular, so it's pretty bad. Tindangles, also pretty bad. These are the Sacred Beasts. Fur Hires have some interesting things that they can do, and they can kind of combo off, but they are missing their support. So yeah, I can't put them in even Rogue. They don't really do anything without their new support. Mayakashi don't do anything. They're more along the same lines of like if they play the zombie world control stuff, they're not bad. Same with Shiranui. Yosenju, Trap Trick. Trap Tricks are a pain. They're really annoying. That's it. They're just really annoying. They play a whole bunch of traps, but the traps can also hit things in hand and the like. I think, I could be wrong, but I think this is Punk. I'm not entirely familiar with this art, but it kind of looks like Punk. The cropping is like, it took out the top half, or like the top couple in like pixels, so I can't quite tell sometimes with these artworks. Like, as you can see here, like the top is kind of cut off. Right here it's cut off. So I don't know what this is. I think it's Punk. We're gonna say that this is Punk. Punk lost Halka-Fibrax, which really did hurt the strategy, but overall it's still pretty good. Ghost Trick is literally unplayable. B-Troopers are fine. Yeah, being able to search out Max C is nice, but you mostly just end on, like, an unaffected dude. Similar to Marincess, but this time you're able to search out Max C, but I think I would rather have Marincess Wave than have Max C. I think Marincess Wave is a little bit better. I guess this one's Earth Machine. I'm going to put this right next to Machina. I do think that both of these are a little bit slept on. Citadel is a house, so being able to, like, nuke the opponent's field is crazy. But also Earth Machine just being able to... It has weird ways to interact, but it basically does the same thing as Machina, just in a slightly different way. It's kind of Citadel control, but with a lot more XZs and the like that you can also punch harder with. Zephyra is honestly probably one of the better pendulum decks. I'm going to put it here. Zephyra's pretty good, just overall. Has a lot of plays. It's a nice, slower control strategy that does have some rather explosive plays and interruptions, which is nice. TG, I've never seen that do anything. Same with Tyframe, same with Galaxy Photon. We'll put Infernoid in Rogue. I think it can high roll pretty often, given the fact that both Monster Gate and Reasoning are currently at 3, as well as Grass. So there is a lot of potential there, but Then we have Ogdodix. Bahamut Shark is just... Bahamut Shark is Bahamut Shark. There's not really a strategy that specifically utilizes Bahamut Shark as their main monster. It's mostly Toad. But, yeah, I don't know. This is like water stuff. I don't know. Endymion is probably the best pendulum deck. I'm going to put it bottom of tier 2. It's very strong and can end on some pretty incredible boards, but the thing is that it's not anything crazy or anything that people aren't prepared for, and it doesn't really have the greatest of time playing through Interruption as well as like a lot of these other, especially like going second planned strategies. Also, it's pendulums, so of course the support isn't great. True Draco is... it's decent. Phantom Knights. Phantom Knights are... I'm going to put them in... They did lose access to some of the adventure stuff, but they basically can end still on the same board. They go Cherubini to dump the Water Enchantress to get the Red of Eremacere, and then they can go from there into the Griffin and all of that stuff. And then they can also still end on Verte with the DPE and the Adventure Engine and the Phantom Knights Engine. So they still end on similar things. I'm going to put them above the Adamantipator because they can do that maybe not more consistently, but I think that their end boards... Well, they're not stronger, I think that they're slightly better. Ending on things like DPE and the like, and being able to, like, just make DPE if they need to, if they ended up getting interrupted. Whereas, like, Adamantipator can get, like, one hand trap and then just end their turn. So there's that. This is... I don't know, this is, like, pendulum good stuff. Electromite's a card, so there's that. We do have to take that into consideration. So we're going to put it below the stun, but overall, pendulums aren't crazy. Sidra, Ancient Gears, Gem Knights, Flomvel's not even worth talking about, let's be honest with ourselves. Plunder! Plunder is always slept on. Plunder is difficult to play, and no one actually plays it. Plunder is actually just very good overall. The meta normally revolves around things like Darks and Lights, which is very good for the Plunder cards. The biggest issue with Plunders right now is the fact that Ash Blossom is so incredibly prevalent due to the fact that Maxi exists. And they lose so hard to Ash Blossom. But, I mean, Blackbeard passes in FTK, so there's that. Oshama's Thunder Dragons are... Thunder Dragons are interesting. A lot of people have outs to Colossus, and, like, Colossus Pass really isn't enough anymore. But if you're able to go, like, Colossus Titan, it is pretty strong. I'm going to put it above DDD. Yeah. Ancient Warriors is a good going second deck. Other than that, it doesn't really do much. Burning Abyss. Yeah. Grinmaju can hit real hard if you're not prepared. Actually, no. Now that I think about it, I don't think they're quite rogue tier. They're kind of just everything else. Same with... These two are the same. Rika, also everything else. Crystron's lost literally their best card. Okay. We have a new top of rogue. Crusadia, again, a going second strategy, being able to OTK pretty efficiently, while also being able to give your opponent a kaiju. Sure, it loses to things like Imperm and Valor and stuff like that, but overall, it's still a great strategy, and you can just, like, OTK your opponent out of nowhere. Megaliths, I think, are a little bit slept on, but I would still put them only in Rogue. They're pretty good, and they can make some pretty incredible boards with things like Apollosa and Full and all of that stuff. But overall, they are a bit of a glass cannon, and they do end up bricking pretty consistently. So, well, I don't want to say consistently, but, like, they're not the most consistent. Though I do personally like them. Heroes are... I'm going to put them below Marincess. I think Marincess is a little bit better. This is hard to say, because honestly, I think if Heroes played a going second strategy, they would be so much better on the ladder, but I have never seen them play the going second strategy. I've always seen them try and end on things like Plasma DPE and Dark Law, which is great if they're able to do that. The problem is that if they get hand trapped, their end boards end up being significantly weaker normally, and like everyone is running hand traps because they're incredibly powerful against a lot of the top decks, most notably things like a Dragon Link as well as the Flunder and what have you. So, again, if they were going second, I think that the deck is significantly stronger. I don't see that, therefore in Rogue. Guru is really, really slept on. I'm going to put them at the top of tier 3. This is probably one of the best control strategies currently. It does brick pretty regularly, but the thing is, again, you're playing a lot of floodgates like Summon Limit and Goes In and the like, and you're basically just controlling the game with this guy, slowly just killing your opponent with like Enchantress or what is it? Guru? It's not Enchantress. What is it? Empress? No. Archfiend something or other. I can't remember what it's called. And just like negating your opponent's effects. Yeah, incredibly powerful overall. This is just like Frog Turbo. Toad is great, but not that great. I think this is Magistus. I could be wrong. Dryas it doesn't quite have the support that it needs to be a good deck. I think we're missing like Rika Princess, which would really make the plant strategies significantly better. Synchron is a deck that takes... I'm actually going to put Synchron in Rogue. It's a deck that can end on some pretty incredible boards, but other than that, it is kind of a glass cannon as well, similar to Megalith. Everyone thought that Nordics would be crazy, and then they never were. Infernity really needs some more cards to be unlimited for them to be really good. Chaos, this is just like a pure Chaos strat. The thing is, Chaos is crazy because of the fact that you can actually utilize grass. That grass looks greener in order to mill a whole bunch of cards and then play through that, giving you access to a myriad of lights and darks to make your hand really go. So honestly, Chaos is still pretty decent. And this is something outside of Dragon Link. Obviously, you can play like just Dragon Link stuff, but you can also play like the Danger engines and all of this myriad of different things. Snow is currently unlimited, so you could also play multiple Snows as well, which is an insane prospect. Yeah, overall, some pretty interesting boards can come out of that. I'm actually going to put this higher than Endymion. I do think that it is rather interesting. And I've seen decks that are specifically Chaos and not like Dragon Link or something along those lines. Black Rose, I believe that this is the cards. Oh my gosh, Cardian. This is Code Talker. Code Talker can potentially U-Link Ibly lock you, but if they get hand trapped, I've seen that they just kind of fold. They kind of do need their effects to resolve, especially their like normal effects, so that they can link off into something that is useful. It's not terrible. Again, it can U-Link and such. I can't put it higher than Heroes or ABC. I'm gonna put it above Unchained. Cyber Angels are bad. Chalice Slime is bad. Mutants, sadly, are bad. Amazement, sadly, is bad. The Gods are terrible. Prank Kid is... Oh my gosh. Prank Kid with one Meow Meow Mew really is not bad. A lot of people are saying that it is terrible, but guess what? In the TCG, it was absolutely crazy. However, we did have access to triple of the Adventure Engine, all 3 of the Water Entrancers, all 3 of the Red Venom Seer, so that does hurt the consistency, at the very least, of the Prank Kids, but they did just get a boost with getting Roxy's back to 3, which means that you are able to play more of your normal summons, which you don't necessarily need. So, honestly, this deck is still incredible. Yes, the deck hurts, mostly due to the fact that the Adventure Engine hurts. The Meow Meow Mew limitation is good, but they should have just banned that card, Dear Lanta. Yeah, Prank Kids are still... I'm actually going to move them up into tier 1. They're still really, really strong. You can still basically end on the same boards that you did previously. Yeah. Dragoonity exists. Branded... Wait, hold on. Do we actually have Branded, or is this... Yeah, okay. Branded. This is probably the most popular deck, and it's probably one of the weakest in tier 1. I think Prank Kids is probably weaker. In all honesty, this is mostly just a fan favorite deck. However, it is incredibly strong, to be fair. Don't get me wrong. It is still a very, very strong deck. However, it loses to a lot of cards, so I don't think it could ever become like the best deck. And the reason for that is because like things you could easily side deck against, or like main deck against this card, and it would still be able to hit other decks. Things like DD Crow, what is it? It's not Ghost Mourner. The other one, Haunted Mansion, Ghost Bell and Haunted Mansion, Called by the Grave, things like that are really powerful against this deck. Even things like Ash Blossom are really strong because it just straight up stops your Branded Fusion, which can just entirely turn off your plays. So yeah, there's that. It's strong, but it will never be the best deck. As for Sword Soul, you could switch out both of these decks. Sword Soul and Dragon Link are basically the 2 best decks. Sword Soul is probably the most popular, or the second most popular of the decks that are currently being run on the ladder, at the top. And yeah, it's still incredibly powerful. Getting access to Protoss is really, really strong. Being able to lock your opponent out of dark monsters shuts down so many decks, such as the Phantom Knights as well as Branded. You can also call something like Wind as well, which shuts down the Lyrilisc Tri-Brigade, as well as Flunder and the like. Yeah, Protoss is just a house of a card, and you can pretty consistently see it as well. Yeah, losing the one long one means that oftentimes you will now have to search out the long one instead of searching out something like a blackout or an emergence or something like that to get into like more Protoss or an additional disruption or something like that. So it is a slight hit, but it's about the same that Fractal did to Tri-Brigade. Generator is probably slept on as well. I'm still going to put it in Rogue, though. I think it's a little bit better than Unchained, but not better than Code Talker. Dinosaurs are also pretty uncommon, but are very strong. I don't think they're stronger than Endymion. Endymion have access to some pretty crazy boards. Well, obviously, most decks do. But actually, now that I'm thinking about it, Dinos are pretty crazy. I'm going to put them above Invoked. Dinos can not only go first, but they can also go second. They can set up some pretty decent boards, and UCT is a house in and of itself. So even if you're able to just stick one UCT, you can even pop something like a baby in hand that you may not have been able to get rid of, or that may have gotten interrupted, like through a maxi or something like that. And then just like flip your entire opponent's board face down, which is quite incredible. Just preventing them from Link summoning, Xyz summoning, or what have you. This is Wind Witch. Madolche is a deck that so many people enjoy and will take into tournaments, and it will mean that it oftentimes gets higher representation in terms of tournament toppings and the like, whereas I don't think it's as strong as tier lists would have it say. I still think it's very strong, and it can end on some pretty nice interactions, but overall it's not crazy. Spellbook of Judgment was very nice for spellbooks, and it still didn't do anything. Arrival Cybers is truly the best of the unaffected big bunguses. I'm going to put it below Dark Lords, but the only reason for that is because Dark Lords can play, again, the Despia branded stuff, which makes that very powerful, and you're just playing like a weaker version of that, whereas the Adignister stuff loses to a lot of common occurrence cards, most notably the Kaijus, which can be problematic. Also, if it gets hand trapped, it doesn't like something like stopping a Dark Infant with something like an Imperm or a Ash Blossom or what have you can literally turn off the entire deck. Now, I've never seen this happen because they always draw the field spell as well, so there's that. I think this is Inzektor. It doesn't do anything. Doesn't do anything. Orchist has received a buff as well, and I'm going to put it right next to the other decks that received a buff not too long ago. Orchist Harp Horror was put to 2. Sure, the deck is still inconsistent because it is able to brick, but the thing is the deck is still able to make some pretty great interaction, but most notably, it is able to recur through a lot of plays. So a lot of decks right now are specifically building like really strong boards or like trying to kill you. And with Orchist, it's very difficult for like you to die, while also you're able to make the same boards and like consistently make powerful end boards or like OTK pretty effectively with like access code and such. So, yeah, there's that. The one Galatea does hurt, but overall, having 2 Harpor and 1 Girsu is quite powerful. Yeah, that's a deck. Trains! This is interesting because, again, it's a going second strategy that can OTK pretty effectively with basically exact damage, which is kind of funny, but not quite. Yeah, overall, just being able to burn for 2k and then punch for 6k is quite impactful in a meta where going second is as strong as it is. Next up, we have the Thunder Arm Dragons. I don't know. They're not very good. Drytron is another sleeper deck, I think. A lot of people stopped playing it, even though it is still just as powerful as it previously was. And in fact, I think Ben 10 got, like, semi-limited or something. I don't know. I feel like they got a buff, but don't quote me on that. No, Ben 10 is still limited. But yeah, still, Drytron is absolutely crazy. I'm going to move it into tier 2. I don't think it's better than Endymion, even though I said, like, everything is better than Endymion after I say that. But no, I genuinely believe that Endymion is a little bit stronger. Again, similar in nature to, like, a lot of these other things that are glass cannons. But the thing is, it actually is a glass cannon. And again, with the prevalence of specifically Kaijus being basically everywhere, yeah, this deck just isn't as powerful. Vampires, I'm sorry. Vampire Zombie is absolutely goated and just an insane card. The vampires overall are pretty bad. Same with Speedroid. I'm going to move Speedroid into Rogue. They can end on some pretty stellar boards, but again, Glass Cannon, but even worse than, like, Drytron. So there's that. Evil Swarm exists. Vendred exists. So this deck is really, really popular and not very good. This is just the flavor of the week being, Live Twin, I should say. It's just like a flavor of the week kind of deck that is able to play a million hand traps. However, unlike something like Salamangreat or what have you, they don't really have access to a great way to kill. They're not really able to put 8,000 damage onto the field, which can leave the opponent access to a way to come back into the game and potentially win, which is a problem. Whereas something like Salamangreat doesn't really do that nearly as often, while kind of having a similar playstyle. I'm going to put this at the... I'm going to put it in tier 3. I still think it's very good, just because you can, like, hand trap your opponent to death. I think we have Kairyu-Yoshin, do we not? We don't. Okay, so this will be the Kairyu-Yoshin control. I think it's one of the weaker of the control strategies, but it's still very good. I'm going to put it below Shaddoll. I think Shaddoll is a little bit better just because Schism is a house, as well as Winda being able to, like, going from Schism into Winda is very nice. But overall, being able to just, like, wipe your opponent's field with not activating an effect is pretty crazy. Yeah, there's that. And then the last one that we will do, I think, okay, hold on. You can tell me if I'm wrong, but we're not going to judge all of the rest of these because I don't know what they are mostly. I think this might be Dinomorphia, so we'll address this one. I think this is Sky Striker. You can tell me if I'm wrong, but I'm just going to say that this is Sky Striker. This is literally just Live Twin 2.0. Sky Striker 2.0 is Live Twin. There you go. So there's that. Charmers are absolute garbage. Dinomorphia is missing Rex. If we get Rex in the game, it's pretty decent, but right now, yeah, without Rex, it's like a mediocre control strategy. Yeah, that's it. So that is the tier list. If you want to see the full list, again, I will post this on my Twitter, which I think is always linked down below. But yeah, there you go. This is my tier list for the upcoming ban list. I'm not going to talk about all of these because either they are not worth it or I don't know what they are. So there's that. If you want to, tell me on Twitter or in the comments what any of those are, then go for it. But yeah, overall, this is the tier list. Tier 1 being Dragon Link, Sword Soul, Flunder, Eldritch, Tri-Brigade, both Lyralisk and Zodiac /Pure / what have you. We have Phantom Knights, Adamancipator, Branded Despia, and Prank Kid. So yeah. Hopefully that you guys, I hope that you guys did indeed enjoy this episode. If you did, a like is very much so appreciated. And if you want to check out more content like this, as well as more Yu-Gi-Oh!, then just be sure to subscribe. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching, and remember to always stay frosty. Bye-bye. Shout out to the Frost Guard, my members. Thank you guys so much for the support, and I hope you enjoy the content.